We've been taught that we are flawed carbon-based beings. And this language comes about in different ways. But the idea is we've been taught, we are steeped in the belief that we're flawed, weak, vulnerable victims of the world around us, of our external environment. And if that's true, think about the implications. It means that we need something outside of us to be healthy in life. It means that we need something outside of us to be successful in life, to realize our potential. Now that we live in a technological age, technology is being touted as our savior. If you are conditioned to believe that you are flawed, weak, and powerless, and you need something outside of you to be healthy and successful, technology has come along and said, hey, we have a great deal for you. Now, I want to be really clear. I'm a scientist. I worked in the high-tech industry, the Cold War years. I worked on the Star Wars defense. I've seen advanced laser systems and radar systems, and I love technology. And I think technology can really help our global family to transcend the suffering that so many people have had on the one hand. On the other hand, you and I have to make a choice as to whether or not technology is going to support us and help us, or whether or not we become the slaves to the technology. And I'm talking about artificial intelligence. I'm talking about transhuman thinking that says the human body must be replaced by computer chips and wires and chemicals in the blood. Very, very different way of thinking. And I'm not saying right, wrong, good, or bad. What I'm saying is this is where we are right now. And we've got choices to make. We can only make those choices if we have the information. As Rachel Carson said, we're only going to value what we know and understand. That's why I'm sharing this with you today. The new story, the new human story, and I'm going to spend some time on this, and we're going to actually go through a couple of exercises to really anchor this idea. So the new human story is telling us something very different. It's telling us that you and I are technologically advanced, highly sophisticated systems of soft technology. I'm going to use this word very intentionally. Soft technology. It's not technology of computer chips or wires and chemicals. You and I are an even more advanced and scalable technology of neurons and cell membranes and ion potentials moving across cell walls and electrical potentials moving from the heart through the body. And you and I have the ability to regulate, self-regulate these on demand. That's where we're going to go with this. Before I do that, I'm just going to share a little emerging philosophy that really helps to embrace why we're going where we're going. There's a new philosophy, an emerging philosophy in the world of science. That consciousness informs itself through its creations. Think about what that means. Consciousness is everywhere. You and I are part of that. We communicate with ourselves, not only directly, but we communicate with ourselves through the things that we build and create in the world. So what that means is books, sculpture, art, music. We think we're creating those for fun, for entertainment, for diversions. Maybe we are. But on a deep level, if you ask a musician, where did that piece come from? Where did that music come from? They'll either say, I don't know. Or more often than not, they'll say, it's not me. It came through me. If it comes through someone, it means it originates somewhere else. Where is that coming from? It's in this field, the field of information intelligence that connects all things. So is it possible that we collectively are asking ourselves to remember something about ourselves through the things that we build and that we create? And if that's true, what are we asking ourselves to remember? Think about that. I mean, look at the Hollywood movies. Some of the blockbusters that even surprised the producers, like The Matrix, for example. Think the movie The Matrix. The Matrix said there is a world that we cannot see that influences a world that we can see, and that we function in both worlds. Now, I'm not saying everything in The Matrix is based on fact, but a dear friend of mine, Dr. Bruce Lipton, who many of you know, I was having a conversation with him, and he actually laughed and he said, you know, people think The Matrix is science fiction. It's actually a documentary. And I laugh when I say that, but the themes portrayed in The Matrix are actually reflecting what quantum physics is now telling us about our world. There are unseen worlds that we are functioning in that influence our physical world. Look at the movie Avatar. Boy, when Avatar came out, such a beautiful film, reminding us collectively of how important our relationship to the natural world is and how important nature is to us. And movies like Inception, where people learn to dream at night in their sleep, and then within the dream, they would go into a deeper dream, and within that dream, another dream, and they would do entire business deals would be worked out between individuals in the dream state. And when they would walk into the boardroom the next day, it was a done deal, and everybody around them said, what's going on? Because they were not privy to those dreams. What are those movies telling us? And look at the movies that young people are drawn to right now. Things like Wonder Woman and The Avengers and Harry Potter. And I'm not saying everything in those is fact, but the theme is that there's a potential within us that we have the ability to tap into as individuals. And everybody's potential is different. We all learn about our own superpowers. So if consciousness is informing itself through its creations, and those films are examples, what is it we're asking ourselves to remember? What superpowers are we asking ourselves to remember? What are we reminding ourselves of? And this is where the new human story of soft technology comes in. So I'm going to share with you a way of thinking. And I admit this is very different, but it's so beautiful, it's so empowering. And I'm going to do it quickly, but it's based on science. When I say soft technology, as I mentioned earlier, each adult, average, whatever average is, we have about 50 trillion cells in our bodies. Think about this. Each of those cells has an electrical potential, 0.07 volts. You say, well, that's not very much, and I agree. It's a very weak potential in each cell. But do the math, 50 trillion cells times 0.07 volts, and all of a sudden you're talking about within your body, the electrical potential of 3.5 trillion volts of electrical potential. That's a lot. What would it mean if you could harness that and direct it to the healing in your body or to the regeneration of cells? What would it mean if you could direct that to elevated brain states that allow you to communicate with other forms of life or in other dimensions that science now tells us we have many, many dimensions that we have the ability to communicate with? Let me give you a sense of what that means, because I know there's just big numbers. 3.5 trillion cells. What you're looking at on your screen right now is a 12-volt battery. Typically, you see them in an automobile. This happens to be for solar panels. It's the same 12-volt battery. It takes 3 billion of those 12-volt batteries to equal the electrical potential in one human within you. But it doesn't stop there. It doesn't stop there. Every cell of your body, it functions as a transistor and a resistor. You're seeing on your screen, these are old style electrical components. They're called surface-mounted components, transistors and resistors. They massage the electricity that goes through a device. Capacitors. Every cell in your body functions as a capacitor. And we still have these today, but if you don't remember back in the 60s, 70s, and even into the 80s, now they look like what you're seeing on the screen. They're all etched onto a little computer chip. They're miniaturized, but the principles are still there. And every cell of your body functions as these technologies that massage energy and information. Every cell of your body releases and absorbs photons of light. That light is information. You are communicating constantly with the world around you. And other forms of life know that sometimes. Animals know this. This is why some animals are really drawn to some people more than they are others, because those people are actually communicating with them in nonverbal ways. We absorb light, we release light, and that is information coming and going from our bodies. You know, if there's one maybe positive thing that can be said about COVID. It's that we all know what cells look like, and you're seeing on your screen right now. We've seen so many of these. On the outside of every human cell, what you're seeing are the antenna used to receive and broadcast information. We call them receptors in biology, but they're actually antennae. Every cell in your body receives information, it transmits information on the surface, and when you go to the nucleus, the DNA in your cell and the genes in the DNA. Every strand of DNA, every gene, it's functioning as an antenna, picking up and transmitting very specific wavelengths of information, of light. Every cell in your body, it stores and releases information just like a computer chip. I mean, when you think about this principle, consciousness informs itself through its creations. Where did the idea for the internet come from? Well, the internet mimics on a very large level the way that neurons function on a smaller level in our hearts as well as in our brains. Where do computer chips come from, like you're seeing on the screen? The computer chips, they look different, but they're functioning on the principle of the way that memory appears to be accessed in the neurons. So we are mimicking in our technology what we do in our bodies. The wires and the chips and components and the chemicals, they mimic what our neurons in our blood and our cells are doing. And this is what I mean to you when I say consciousness informs itself through its creations. All of this outer world that we're building of technology, it mimics what we already do. But here's the key: we do it better. We do it better. And I can say to you, I can look you right in the eye and say, literally, you and I, we are the technology that we've been waiting for. We are the technology. We've been waiting for. We're building stuff around us to remind us of our own power. And the power that we've been conditioned to discount, to forget through the ancient texts, many ancient traditions. We were conditioned to forget about that power because it is so powerful for precisely this reason. We see this with men, we see this certainly with women and the feminine power as well. But this is where it gets really interesting, and this is where it gets really relevant to what you and I are living today, this world of extremes, is that you and I not only have the power, but we self-regulate on demand, at will. We have the ability to self-regulate all this potential, and we do it through thought, feeling, emotion, belief, breath, and focus. The very principles of our most ancient and cherished spiritual traditions, indigenous traditions, these are the traditions that we used to think, or the principles we used to think that were relegated only to yogis and monks and nuns and mystics and shamans and curanderos. And now we know that what they preserve for us, we can do in our living room. You don't have to go to a mountaintop in a monastery halfway around the world and you give up your family and your job and everything that you love. You can, but it's not necessary. These are the keys. These are the keys to this self-regulation, and we are learning it in the laboratory, and we're learning it from our indigenous ancestors. This opens the door to the new human story, and that's why I wanted to share this with you today, because our highest form of mastery comes from awakening the extraordinary potential that lives within us, to embrace the deep truth of who we are and how we function in our world. It's all about our ability to self-regulate.